All right, guys, this is the last of 3 videos that we're going to be doing for this paper. And this one is just basically really explicit description about what you need to do in each paragraph. I know I talked about the goals of each paragraph, and that's all well and good, but I really wanted to talk about what a paragraph looks like. So I think I might even use somebody's. We'll see if I go do that in a second, but I'm hoping that you guys can all see this. I'm not going to even zoom in, but basically each paragraph should be a minimum of 7 to 8 sentences. Okay, so you need this to be 7 to 8 sentences, and the overall, it should look like this. You should have your topic sentence as your first sentence. The topic sentence should say something like, if you're doing motives, for example, of Virginia, motives for why it was settled. Virginia was settled primarily for wealth and profit-making purposes, period. That would be an example of a topic sentence. And then you would give me a series of points or pieces of evidence that support that argument that Virginia was settled for profit and for the creation of wealth. So you need to have, as I indicate here, you need to have evidence of this. So if we're looking at this specifically, and I draw my little arrow down here, you look at this specifically, and I'm saying Virginia, I should probably use a different pen, I'm not going to, was settled for the purpose of making a profit for England. You need to then find, that's your topic sentence, right? You need to then find, I would say, at least 3 distinct pieces of evidence to support that. This can be from a variety of places. We talked about the bucketing in the first video. But I would argue that every time you introduce, so that would be your first sentence, Virginia was settled for the purpose of making a profit in England. And then you would go into saying, Jamestown was settled in 1607 by, young men looking to make a profit. Okay. And then you would go through and indicate a piece of evidence to me. So you could do a couple different things. And this is for the Virginia motive piece, right? You could use your textbook and quote something. Or you could talk about Captain John Smith's dig gold, load gold source. Or then you could talk about an indentured servant agreement. Right, because that would indicate that they're clearly interested in just making a profit. And then you need analysis. So if you're going to directly quote something from the textbook, or John Smith, or the indentured servant agreement, anything, you always need analysis. You need to indicate why what you've mentioned proves your point that Virginia was settled for the purpose of making a profit for England. And this is true for each and every body paragraph. If you're going to go through and say that if you're going to say that Massachusetts was settled by religious Puritans interested in creating an ideal Christian community, then your pieces of evidence need to indicate to me or support that argument. And then you need to give me a sentence or two of analysis as to why that piece of evidence helps support your argument. So you should never end with a quote in any body paragraph. There always needs to be a tie-in at the very end, right? It says last paragraph sentence reaffirms topic sentence argument. So you wouldn't then just repeat your topic sentence. Don't do that. That's silly. What you would do is something, you give me your 3 pieces of evidence and you do some analysis, and then you would say, Virginia was intended to act as a source of revenue for England, although Virginia faced struggles early on, period. Okay, when you're doing this for the types and for the economies, you want to think about, when I did this, if you look over here, right, we talked about this. This should look familiar. Like for the economies, for example, right? So what did I say here? Virginia is established as a cash crop economy, which results in a profit-driven hierarchy, right? Everyone's treated kind of unfairly. What sources indicate that Virginia is a hierarchical, stratified cash crop economy? So if you mention Bacon's Rebellion, if you quote Nathaniel Bacon in his manifesto, you would give me some context for that. You would say things in Virginia got so bad because it was so competitive that white male frontier farmers felt the need to overthrow the government that was controlled by white elite plantation owners. Like, that's something you would say, right? That indicates how competitive and hierarchical Virginia is. The formation of their the layout of their plantations, which really kind of underscores the importance of not community, but of it all being geared to making a profit. Whereas in Massachusetts, obviously the geography of Massachusetts indicates it has a shorter growing season. But you would talk about, the Connecticut regulations for wage and price regulations. You would talk about the Springfield Agreement. You would talk about, you go into your textbook and look about, the kind of industries that develop in Massachusetts. All of the Cow Common map, right? That all revolves around one central place. And, the reason that guy's farm is all spread out and he has different pieces of land is because it's not contiguous, because all the land's kind of crummy and he needs to, go all over the place. But again, my purpose in doing this really short video is to tell you that when you are doing this, and I'll upload this at Honest Learning. I hope I remember, or you can just freeze frame this. You need this should be your layout. If you want to write it in like this, that's fine. Topic sentence, it should be this. Imagine this is two bookends, right? These are your bookends, and these are your books, and you need to have the stuff in here, okay? Evidence should be about a sentence or two. It can be a quote. Analysis should be a sentence or two. Evidence, quote, or direct, paraphrasing, analysis. This has to happen for every single body paragraph. The introduction and the conclusion in the rubric, I ask you I tell you what I want you to do. In the introduction, you're setting the stage for me. You would indicate the dates that Virginia is settled and Massachusetts is settled. You would give me some, fun-filled details about what Virginia is like in its early days of settlement, what Massachusetts is like in its early days of settlement, and then you would, hit me with your thesis, which is that, while these places were both settled by people of English origin, they become very different because Virginia was created, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to give you that. The conclusion is going to sum up this stuff and say, by 1700, these two colonies had emerged with, distinct colonial practices that are very distinct. And then you would go on to sort of reaffirm what those things are. Virginia was settled for this reason, and this kind of people live there. Massachusetts was settled for this reason, this kind of people settled there. And then you would make a comment about, like, the Civil War, which, ripped the country apart in 1861. Its roots can be traced back to these very early differences between the colonies. And by 1861, there was no way for the two regions to compromise, something like that. Okay, so hopefully this is helping a little bit. And this is the last video. No more videos. And I'd like you to watch it. I think it's important. And yeah, that's about it.